back. Episode 2, the Skegcast. Well, I've made it to number 2. It's a fucking miracle, and I know what you're thinking. No, I don't have any other fucking suits, and it's impossible to get a suit sponsor, so I'm just gonna wear this suit forever, I've decided, as long as I don't blow out too hard, which is happening. But anyway, so stoked to introduce my next guest, Ryan Hipwood, into the car this week. We went for a drive down where he lives in Casuarina and went for a burn and caught up on all things his life. Unbelievable conversation, and I'm so stoked to have the mighty Ryan Hipwood on the Skegcast this week. Let's do it.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
How they going?
What, the kids?
Yeah. There she is.
They're going.
Bye, guys.
Pretty full on.
Mate, sick spot.
Oh, it's mental, yeah.
Dude, unbelievable. There's a beach just there.
Yeah,
You can run through.
Yeah, just right here at the end of the street.
Mate, well, thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, no,
Sorry about all the
thanks.
cameras. It's a bit weird, eh, at the start.
Yeah, no.
Cameras
it's
pointed
good.
right in your face. Look at them all.
No, they're not here.
No, they're not here exactly, man. It's.
Have you had a coffee yet?
No, let's go get one.
Yeah, let's get a coffee.
Gotta
Gotta be jacked up for
Let's
this
jack
shit.
you fucking right up. Mate, how long have you lived here?
I've owned that block for 10 years.
No shit.
Yeah.
There wouldn't have been much here
There's nothing.
10 years ago.
There's a sand mine.
Yeah.
The whole place is full of sand. So I built my house and there was nothing around it. It was just like my house and it was like sand dunes all around it. It was just before the GFC
Yeah, okay.
and they were offloading heaps of land.
Dude, amazing.
No one wanted to live down here though. Everyone thought it was a bit weird.
You know, I wonder, and I've thought about it a little bit because now all the trees have grown up here. It's a really established looking place. And back then I remember coming here and it was just blocks.
Yeah, it was
And
nothing.
you just think, it just felt like the end of the end of the earth a little bit.
It was a bit dead.
It was a bit dead, but now it's this fucking metropolis.
Well, yeah, when I first made the call, I was like where am I going to go? Because I obviously didn't have that much money and it was off the plan. So I thought, oh, fuck, I think I chucked like 25 grand on it.
Yep.
And that was the 5% deposit.
No way.
And it didn't register. It wasn't a registered lot, which means like it didn't exist. So I took a bit of a punt.
Damn.
And yeah, sure enough, 2 years later, it was banks gave us the money and then pulled the house together myself with the old man.
Did ya?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? You built it?
We built it, yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Mate, you got some skills.
Nah, not really.
No. Hey, did you grow up on the Gold Coast, man? Are you born on the Gold Coast?
Yeah, Tweed Heads.
No shit.
Yeah, original.
Fucking tweed breed.
I
Okay.
know.
No, well, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, no, my old man's from Brizzy.
Yeah.
My mum's from Sydney originally, but they've been on the coast a long time. Like they grew up on the coast, and my old man would drive down to the Gold Coast when it was like a holiday destination. You didn't really live on the coast.
Nah.
And so, yeah, we my old man was a bricklayer, and in the early days, he used to live around Cooley and stuff like that, and would tell me really like crazy stories about the surf culture back then and what it was like around town.
What was it like?
It was pretty wild. I think it was pretty rogue. Like, he said it was just fun, you know, like really, it was a country surf town.
Yeah.
That was what it was. And it was a holiday destination for people from Brisbane and other parts that would come there, and he just said it was fun, you know, really fun.
How was it when you were growing up, man? How do you remember it being a kid here on the Gold Coast I'm talking about?
Oh, look, I do remember, well, I grew up in Palm Beach, and Palm Beach was a pretty desi place back then.
Yeah.
And so we always moved around the Gold Coast though, because the old man there's a little coffee joint here. If you want to
Sick.
stop.
Yeah, we'll stop here.
You can park around the back.
Oh,
too.
nice one. Yeah, I'll do that. Great.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a desi place, Palm Beach when I was a kid. I remember that's how I kind of got into surfing, but initially we'd move around the coast so much because it was such a growing little place, and the old man was a builder and started off bricklaying, then went into building. But we just bounced around these suburbs that were popping up, like Eleanor and stuff like that, and he would he'd have his bricklayers, he'd pull the buildings together, and we'd live in a place and then piss off and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know? So,
And that was his thing. He'd do like specky houses and build them and sell them.
yeah, rental properties, and he'd just build them, sell them. And then that's kind of how we got to start.
Fuck, let's go get a coffee, fire you up a bit. All right,
Let's
cool.
go.
How good's this angle?
Yeah.
I've just come up with this morning.
Ooh.
It's
Straight
a
off the
spicy,
monitor.
straight off the monitor. Yeah, it's a spicy little angle.
That's what you want.
Yeah, well, man,
All GoPro'd up, all angles.
every angle. When I got in the car with Brisick, I had a monumental melt, and it made me realise I haven't travelled in a long time. When I fucking went to the States just recently, like I didn't do my visa in time, didn't make my flight to LA, had to wait another day in Sydney to go.
Oh, wow.
While the whole team I'm travelling with, who I'm travelling with for the first time with them, go, and I'm just left in fucking... Anyway, and then I get to LA, and then because I'm a day late, I'd organised the interview with Brisick, who's going to Italy the next day. I had to go basically land, get in an Uber, go to his house, get in his car,
Rig
and
him
roll
up.
it. And roll. And I'm just like, all right.
He seemed like an interesting cat.
Mate, he's a bloody unbelievable character, man. I love him. And we've just been working on that Druin movie for so long.
Sorry, I'll piss that.
Yeah, sweet, dude.
So many interruptions.
It's all good. Did your old man, we're all coffeeed up now, listener. Did your old man get you into surfing, man? Like, was that how it went down, or is it because you lived
Not
in
really.
Palm Beach and you
No.
were just like, it was the closest thing to do?
I was into BMX
Well,
when I was
yeah.
a kid, like right into it.
No way.
And that was our thing for ages. And then we moved to Palm Beach. I got into surfing when I moved to Palm Beach. My old man was building a house along Jefferson, and that was when there was no real nice houses along there. They're all beach shacks or housing commission units along Palm Beach. Like I was saying before, it was a pretty desi little spot.
Yeah.
And so living on the beach, I was like, oh, this gig's pretty good. We got into nippers like most kids do, and I got into that, and then it got to a point where I was just like, well, I want to go surfing. I don't want to go nippers, hang out on the beach all day and get fucking sandy. I was kind of into surfing, and then joined Palm Beach Board Riders at the time, pretty young, and I was hanging with a young kid at the time that was a good friend, Matt Watson, and he was the world grommet champion at the time, and so I was just frothing to surf. So anyone that was surfing around that area, I was pumped as a kid, and my whole life was that was my first love affair.
Yeah.
I was just, as soon as I started doing it, I was just 6 hours in the water every day.
How old do you reckon you were, man, when you were doing that?
I was like 9, I think.
Yeah.
9 or 10.
Yeah.
At that age where you're just like pumped.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Wet Wetties, 7-Eleven Chico rolls, Slurpees, Wetty in the dryer.
Wetty in the dryer.
And because we lived on the beach, we were fortunate enough that the old man built a house on the beach. That was the spot. Like all my mates just in and out there. It was a rotating door, and it didn't stop. It was like that all the way through to my teenage years, and we just had such a good childhood.
Yeah.
Like growing up on the coast in that area on the beach, it was such an amazing lifestyle, and looking back at it, it was a really
You were spoiled pricks.
Spoiled pricks, absolutely.
And you don't know it maybe your old man, maybe you had the foresight to know, but you grow up on the Gold Coast. It's one of the most idyllic places in the world.
You don't know any better, right? Like, there's it was just an amazing time to grow up there. I mean, the waves were crowded, but they weren't what they were like right now, where it's ridiculous, and we just during the teenage years, we'd go surf all day, and then creep up the coast, get up to no good at night, and that was like our life.
Unbelievable. When
It
did you go, oh shit, I'm going to do some comps? And was competition a thing?
It's just a natural progression.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, when I was growing up, there was no more focus on the surfing world than in Coolangatta, ever. You had Mick, Dean and Joel, and they were the limelight of the area, of the surfing world for over a decade.
Absolutely.
And so, everyone else was just in the shadow. And so, getting to grow up around those guys as well was pretty amazing. And it was just like, surfing was pretty popular back then, and there was quite a lot of money in it and stuff like that. But for me, it was never about that. I wasn't the most talented surfer. I had talent, but I definitely wasn't a talent that was going to go win a world title. That's for sure.
No.
And that was apparent, and I knew that. And so the love affair of surfing was still there, though. And I thought, well, I'm just going to ride this till the wheels fall off. Like, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, the alternative for me was like, I knew I had to go get a trade. My old man was in the building game. He was a hard worker. He came from nothing. And so the realization is he ain't going to let me sit on my ass and do nothing.
Yeah, nah, fuck no.
So it was fucking like, get to work, kid, And so I was fortunate enough that the love affair turned into a sponsorship. The junior series was a thing, and it was, you could make money on it. And you didn't need much money. 17, 18, 16, whatever. You get a 25 grand, 30 grand contract, you're rolling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're pumped. And
Yeah.
so secured a sponsorship with Quickie pretty young, and so that's where it started. Like that was my little my surfing. That was the start of my surfing career, and obviously I milked it for a pretty long time, and I was fortunate to be able to do that. And it was a really crazy journey. Like I said before, it was a dedication, a lifelong dedication at that time to, I guess, to put into that art form. It's an art form at the end of the day.
For sure.
And it was a love affair that I wanted to pursue at the time.
Isn't it crazy? Like, I remember those times growing up. The expectation was so high because those three guys that you're talking about were so far ahead of everyone in the entire world, and they all just happened to come from this small little bit of sand. And you're like, you're an amazing surfer, but compared to these other guys,
You're nothing.
You're nothing. You're actually nothing.
You're
You come
nothing.
from the Gold Coast. Most Gold Coasters surf pretty good. Like a lot of Gold Coasters surf at a really quite a good level, but they would consider themselves shithouse compared to a lot of the rest of the world, which is so funny. Do you remember?
Well, there was top 44 at the time, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Like there was guys in that lived in Australia that didn't even get recognition because the other boys were like, they were so dominant, and there was a lot of hype around that,
Totally.
which is obviously pretty obvious and called for, but yeah.
Do you remember coming on the crossing, which is where I actually met you? I did an intro up at the point before, and I'm not sure if it was any good, but I actually met you in Africa. I met you in
Teddy Grambo was on that trip. Danny Wills, Craig
Wharton. Who else?
Matoshi Ono.
Yeah, Masatoshi Ono.
That's it.
The twin.
Yeah, that's right.
Unbelievable surfer.
Yeah, he's still, yes.
Japanese Oki.
Yeah, that's true.
Fuck, he was a legend. I stayed in touch with him for ages, but I don't know how old you were then, but that's I literally, of all the places to meet you, we live in the small stretch, that's probably the most far away place I've ever been in my life.
I think it actually is the farthest place you can actually go from the Gold Coast. And I had no idea, knew nothing about it.
Neither.
Wasn't told anything about it. And that was my first major sponsored surf trip at the time. And it's funny that we flew all that way, and that was the first time I'd ever met you. Yeah. It was on that boat trip. But I remember, the one thing I do remember going is that I was shithouse at travelling because I hadn't travelled that much at the time.
Yeah.
and that was kind of like a solo trip. But I remember pulling up. They said, "Oh, that you're going to go through France." It was like a small layover in France to get to North Africa, which is Cape Verde. I'm thinking, oh, that's kind of weird, but whatever. They said, oh, like it's going to be hot at the location. That was pretty much all I got. So I'm running shirts, like coming from the Goldie, and I just remember there was like an 8 or 10 hour layover in France. And I remember there was a delay coming into France because it was snowing.
Snowed under.
And I rocked up the France airport and there's people with,
turtlenecks and shit on.
No, like with coats on, like proper bear coats. And this kid from the Goldies rocked out with a pair of like sandals on or whatever I had on and a shirt, no jumper, because all the luggage got checked through. And I'm running around France airport trying to look for a jumper. And they're all like 10 grand, couldn't buy anything. So I sat in the toilet for like 6 hours trying to warm up.
Fuck.
And everyone was so rude. I was just like, what's the deal with this joint? Get me out of here. But it was a pretty rad experience. And we actually got some pretty amazing waves that trip too.
Man, it was crazy. We sat there bobbing around in the water in the wind for like a week. I don't know if you remember this, but it was like, so windy, and we just sat there and everyone was going fucking crazy. And then it got, I reckon, some of the best waves I've ever, remember that left?
Yeah.
Some of the best waves I ever saw were that day. We shot, it's the longest I've ever filmed in one day. We shot from, I remember I had to body surf in with my hard case and all my gear.
Yes.
With flippers. They just sent me in. Again, I'd never done that before, but yeah, okay, sure, in on I go. Stood on the sand from sunrise till sunset, and I remember you were still getting really good ones at sunset in the dark on the right. It moved from the left to the right throughout the day.
That's right, yeah, it did.
Anyway, what a fucking unbelievable trip, and it's something I always bring up.
And it was pretty iconic too, because Teddy Grambo was there, and then Martin Daly, obviously, who's been around the surf industry forever. There was someone else on that trip. Was Gary Elkington on that trip?
Gary Elkington came on that trip because he was living in the Canary Islands at the time.
And I do remember that there was, there's some pretty wild stories going down with those guys. There may have been a couple of nights of rum drinking or something like that.
There was some wild shit going up on the roof that we weren't getting invited to, I know that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was where I was going with that story.
Mate, I forgot that Kong was living in the middle of fucking nowhere. He had the most beautiful girlfriend of all time. They lived in this concrete little wind-blown motherfucking shack in literally what looked like the desert.
Yeah.
And that's where Kong was living. And how he found himself there, I don't know. Mate, when did you decide that you were going to be a big wave surfer? And how the fuck did that come about?
I don't know, it's kind of weird, like, because I was always pretty scared of big waves, like even growing up. I remember thinking, this is not really my thing, and I've got an older brother and he's a bit of a lunatic. He's not really scared. He's not really scared of too much, and I'm thinking, he's the crazy brother and I don't really have that gene, it's not my thing. But I do remember thinking that there was a point in time where I was like, look, the whole competition thing's not really my thing. Especially to try to qualify and stuff like that on the QS. You're talking like 2 foot waves. I was always a bigger frame kid, and I knew I had to look at other options. And the free surfing thing, that first trip I went with you on the crossing, kind of was like, the free surf route was something. And that was something that Quicksilver offered out to me. They said, look, you either go this way and we support you for a period of time. If you're no good, you're clipped. Yep. Or you're going to go this way. And as long as you keep up the media content and you're creating good content and you remain, somewhat current in the marketplace, and we'll keep sponsoring you. And I was like, well, that's a no-brainer for me. They gave us a travel budget. And obviously, if you're going to be a free surfer, you've got to perform in Hawaii. And I remember the first time I went there was with Turtle, and I'm thinking, okay, so I've got to get over there. At the time, Turtle was always going over there. He was a frother, loved surfing from Burleigh, and he said, "Oh, look, I'll take you over there. I'm going." I'm like, awesome. So he met up with my parents. Obviously, I was 14, and first time they met him, old man just said, "Oh yeah, well, come around for dinner. I'll meet you." And then he's like, "Sweet, take my son." 2 months. I was 14. Went for 2 months with Turtle. And
We're talking about Ryan Gray.
Ryan Gray. Yeah, his brother started. Well, him and his brother started Rhythm.
Yep.
And that's another story. But
Yeah.
So that was my first intro to find a love affair for bigger waves, because it was a different type of surfing. Like you come from the Gold Coast, you go there, and it's like, okay, this is where I feel like I shine. This is my comfort zone.
Why did you think that? Because the power of the waves?
The power of the waves, the bigger boards, the different lines you can draw, and you can be heavy-footed.
Yeah.
And for me, it just felt normal. And and then, you know, that trip in particular, I got to meet Jamie O'Brien, who's still a really good friend. And yeah, we just kicked it off. You know, he was obviously living right there at Pipe, and every day on the push bike from sunset to there, and it was just like that for 2 months. And I found my feet, and I was surfing Pipe and backdoor, and nearly drowned, got tied up in a leg rope, got second reefers on the head, came in crying, and his old man's an Aussie. He goes, I remember it was the first time in my life where I had to become a man pretty quickly, because I came in expecting like everyone to be like, "Are you alright? You okay?" Came in, and Jamie O'Brien's old man's like, "What happened?" I go, "Fuck, I nearly drowned. Like, oh, I'm over it. I'm gonna go home." He's like, "Well, you come over here, surf Pipe. What do you think's gonna happen?" And that was it. But that was like as much affection as I got. And he said, "Oh, you get to do it all again. Like, you know, what you want to be a pro surfer? Pony up, you know." And so,
Wow.
and it was a pretty wild place. Like when I was there at 14, it was
Mate, it would have been insane.
it was insane. It was
What year would that make it?
I don't know. I mean,
You're 14. It's probably 2000 and
I'm 39.
Right.
I'm nearly 40.
You're nearly 40. Yeah.
And I was 14 at the time, so it was a long time ago.
Fucking hell, man.
So I saw a lot of shit in that time.
No shit.
And yeah, I went back every single year after that, since probably just 2 years before COVID. So, you know, every single time I went back, the thing I loved about it is that there was no level. You know, Sunset was a scary place, and then Pipe and Backdoor never, you know, it's always a place that demands respect. And then it just kept growing from there. And then, you know, I got the itch for big waves, and I'd come back here, and that's when the slab thing took off. You know, Kobe and Mark Matthews, who I spent nearly my whole surfing career with at the end, we were starting to understand that was quite a unique thing, that other places in the world, they didn't have slabs, or they weren't really surfing it.
Why does he have slabs? And what kind of wave are you talking about? Which one are you talking about in particular?
So a slab is just, in layman's terms, is like a really deep continental shelf that rises up and hits a really shallow part of a reef or a ledge or a rock or granite rock or whatever you want to call it. Usually we get granite rock type ledges in Australia, and it comes from, you know, a really deep continental shelf up until granite rock, and it just folds on itself and probably goes more wide than what it does high.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, gradual reefs in Tahiti, Fiji and all that, it's a high pitch wave, and yes, obviously Chopu is technically a slab, but places like Shipsterns were getting a lot of notoriety, and, you know, surfing was buzzing at the time, and news outlets were running it. It was just, you know, it was I guess it was kind of like, it was like when base jumping first came out,
right,
or something like that.
Yeah.
There was huge hype around it. And
Absolutely.
it was an exciting time because, and it was an exciting time for surfing, I think, too, because big waves were getting pioneered, like Chopu with lead, and, you know, Shipsterns was getting pioneered, and So all these things were happening, and the surfing world was really buzzing around it, and that intrigued me, you know, because it was happening in front of me at the time.
For sure.
And then people that I looked up to were at the forefront of that. But the age gap wasn't significant, so maybe eight years or something, 10 years, 6 to 8, 10 years. And so for me, I was like, okay, well, I want to keep getting paid to surf. I found this love affair of surfing bigger waves. New waves were getting pioneered. People that I was surfing the world with were doing it and doing it better than anyone. I thought, well, sweet, sign me up. Let's go.
It. And from a professional standpoint, like you say, that if you're looking to get media coverage, go and surf a fucking crazy looking wave.
Well, that was the thing, like they were getting so much notoriety that I looked at it and go, well, if I'm looking at this as a professional job aspect, couple of those trips, I'm done. Sign me up, another 3-5 year contract.
Totally.
And I'm still living the dream. So it was a no-brainer. But the love affair was always above all else.
Yeah.
You couldn't do what we'd done for that long if you didn't love it.
Yeah.
And so, not without going through every single step of that surfing journey, it's been a fucking ride. It's been, and like now, I'm out of the bubble, and I've had time to reflect. It's fortunate that I've still got my life, because some of the people that I was around or surfing with either came close to losing their life or did, and or got severe injuries where they'll have them for the rest of their life. And so I think I only really started to realise that in the last year or two, where I'm like, I've got kids that are getting older, and I've stepped outside the so-called bubble, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is pretty comfy life. Like,
yeah.
I'm happy doing this now. But looking back at it, I was kissed on the dick that I'm still here.
Absolutely. And did you must have had times where you thought, well, you're going to live or die for this, and like going out at, say, the Jaws waves that you've surfed or whatever, was there times where you kind of just was haphazard to the wind, where you just sort of thought, I'm going to do this no matter what, whether I live or die?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. When I was chasing it and frantically, that was my life. That was all that consumed my life. And you had to have that mindset that you're like, sweet, I'm willing to give up my life for this sport at this point in time in my life, which is pretty wild. And you had to actually mentally be okay with that.
How do you fucking be mentally okay with that?
Well,
I don't know. What other job is there that? How do you be mentally okay with that?
Well, maybe you're not mentally okay.
No shit.
In the first place.
No shit.
I don't know. I think you're so consumed. It's the people you're hanging around, the notoriety, your ego, how old you are. There's so many facets that come with it. There's that was at a time of the career though, but then there was other times where I was like, okay, no, I don't want this to kill me, and I have to do more things to put measures in place to be more calculated. So, if I fall, I can stay underwater for 55 seconds with a high heart rate, or, my equipment needs to be better, or I need to be better, or, I need to read the conditions better. I need to line up forecasting to understand when to surf on a big day. Like, it started to become, there was probably a point where I was young, reckless, and so consumed that I didn't give a shit if it killed me, or I did, but I was okay with that. But then it became like, okay, well, this is a job, and I want it to be sustainable. So what measures do I need to put in place to make it safer than what, to make it somewhat safe?
Yeah.
It's always going to be dangerous, but the priority was, okay, well, I want to actually come home. Like, I don't want to...
No shit.
Yeah, I don't want this to.
But like when you had your
Yeah.
kids, that must have been something that triggered a more of a sentimentality around survival.
Oh, that was a turning point for me, and I was in denial. I had my first child, and to be honest, I felt like I was probably in the peak of my career when I had my first, when Arlo came along, my first daughter, and the sponsorship thing was great at that time, and Monster Energy with a maiden sponsor on the nose, which is pretty unique, and they were really supportive. But I was always in the back of my mind. That was when I really started to ramp up, like my training and nutrition, and I was like 100% dedicated to be as professional as I could be as a surfer. Like I had a trainer at the time, full-time nutritionist, 2 trainers, breath trainer, gym trainer. I had boards dialed in, I had equipment dialed in, like everything was on point. And that was at that time where I had a good run in the Jaws event, and also like I wanted the sport to be a bit more professional as well, because it was always a bit rogue and sporadic.
Yeah.
Chase a swell, get shots, bang, like it's like all here. But then the big wave world tour thing started kicking off, but it was very Americanized.
Yeah.
And me, Mark, we're like, okay, yeah, we're ready, like we're here. And it was like, well, they had to look after the locals in their spots and stuff like that. And so we're like, shit, we've got a time limit to this. We need to do something about it, because we're down here in Oz, and yeah, we've got the respect, but we're kind of getting left behind because this global tour is happening, and we probably didn't put the time in that was required, to be in the Mavs event and stuff like that, because we were chasing waves around here.
Yeah, you mean, and by time you mean time in those waves.
Time in those waves,
Yeah.
and those locations to justify the invitations and stuff like that. And look, at the time we knew that even if we put the time in, the local guys would have probably got those spots over us anyway.
Yep.
And so we're like, shit. I said, Mark, if we're not going to get invited to these things, I'm just going to start my own. And he's like, oh yeah, sweet. Well, yeah, he wasn't really on board at the time at the start. It was a bit of a pipe dream. But then I actually started ramping it up, and I got transfixed on actually doing it, and it just became like another obsession. I feel like maybe there's a bit of a pattern here.
Oh, no shit, I was going to say. Yeah.
And so I got transfixed to run the first ever big wave surfing event in the country, and got some really helpful people and still really close friends of mine and my family. The Witterus, John, who at the time was a solicitor and owned quite a big solicitor firm on the coast. I remember walking into the meeting and telling him about the dream of doing it. Well, actually, I didn't even say it was a dream. I said I'm doing it, and he thought I was mad. And to be honest, I didn't really have the money to really kickstart it, and the legal fees alone would have been pretty significant. And I remember at the time he was actually putting this Gold Coast Suns AFL team together from nothing, from scratch.
Amazing.
I thought, oh, yeah, this is my guy.
Yeah,
if he
he's a
can do
dreamer.
that.
yeah.
Like me and him are on.
Yeah.
And so there was a bit of method to the madness and the
For
timing.
sure.
And so I'm thinking, well, sweet. I've got John here. My wife at the time was working in Brisbane. And so I went into the meeting and said, okay, here it is, John. We're going to do the first ever big wave surfing event in the country, and you're going to help me start it. And I don't have any money to pay you for the legal fees, but what I will give you is a percentage in the company that you're going to help me start. And then on top of that, my wife's in Brisbane and I want her back down the coast, and you've got a really good firm here, so you can give her a job and you can help me start this thing. And he goes, you're nuts, but yeah, I'm keen. For some reason I like you and I want to help you. And
wow.
And from that moment on, he did. And so we pulled off what I've probably a bit biased here, but it was outside of some accomplishments that I've done in big wave surfing and tick boxes and, you know, locations and waves and all the other shit, that to me was probably the biggest legacy that I'd done in the sport, was to create that event, which was the highest prize pool for a one-day surfing event ever. We obviously got to invite friends and locals that all got paid 20 grand to rock up without placing.
That's unbelievable.
And so, and I think still to this day, it's the highest prize pool for a one-day surfing event ever. And, you know, we had a couple of stabs at it. The first year was a bit small, whatever. But then came back. Fiji was running at the time, and both islands had the Rebel Cape Fear event on for that, you know, once in a decade swell. And yeah, I remember we rocked up for that day. I'm sorry if I'm going on a bit of a tangent.
No, not at all.
Even spoken
just
yet.
so people know, you're talking about the Cape Fear event.
It's a Rebel Cape Fear event, which was, like I said, it was an invitational big wave event in Oz. And so, yeah, we that one year we rocked up. I knew it was on. It was so obvious that it was going to be amazing, and almost too good. Like, you looked at the charts and you just go, there is no way it's going to be that good. And sure enough, and still to this day, I've never seen it like that.
Unbelievable time.
I've never seen a swell on the whole East Coast that good. And so we rocked up that morning, and some of the craziest big wave surfers all together, craziest infrastructure, like over $1 million injected into a one-day event.
Who paid for all this?
Well, Rebel did.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
No one else would.
No.
You know, kudos to Rebel, because man, it was a risk. It was a couple of years it didn't run. You know, one year it was small, but like that one event is probably the most viewed surfing event ever in history.
That's insane.
So it paid off for them. But we rocked up on that day. I remember seeing a wave break off the ledge all the way through, and it was like, it would have been easily 12, maybe 15 feet, but as thick as a house. And it didn't stop, and it ran straight into the cliff and just kept barreling along the cliff face all the way into this bay I've never seen it do that before.
Wow.
And we all got in there, and Rebel kind of tripping, like, is this too big to run, or like, what's the deal? So they called a surfers meeting, and we all came into this little thing. They filmed it, right? Because it was like a consent thing.
For sure.
Yeah, they did. And they said, okay, we need a surfers meeting, and there's footage of this somewhere. And they said, oh, guys, we just need to make sure that everyone is happy and are willing and able to surf in this event. Please put your hand up. You got Kobe Abbott in there, Jughead, you know, Mark, myself, I think, but then like the core local guys that were nuts out there too. And yeah, everyone's like, yeah, no, we're on. There was no hesitation. It was
Can you imagine that room where, imagine saying you weren't in. Like, you're not.
No, there's no.
Nobody's allowed to say that.
No. And on top of that, I'm pretty sure in that meeting, everyone said, yeah. And then next minute, Jughead goes, I'm out there. And we're like, because it was still like the peak of the swell in the morning. And I think he might have been in the first heat. And he's run from that thing, no hesitation, to just jump straight off the rock. And like, there was I don't even think there was even skis in the water that were ready to tow or anything. So, and then obviously from there, it was just like, well, these are wild kids in the school class, you know, ready to go, ready to cause a mark.
It's a different, you touched on it before, but there's something wrong with you guys. It's a different kind of person.
Yeah.
You got a click in you that's different from most people's physiology, where there's the risk of the consequences don't seem apparent at all.
Yeah, I think some people maybe have it in more extreme versions than others. I was always scared. like nervous, scared, but I was kind of got addicted to that feeling as well. Like it was such a high and such a low. Like I remember after that event and other swell events where like I'd be so high on adrenaline from it that it'd feel like I'd be 100% coming down. Like it took me 2-3 days and I felt like I'd had the biggest night ever.
Wow.
And I'd just be like, I'd be dropped. Like it'd just be completely flat. And so you get kind of addicted to that stuff in some weird way. But yeah, so that, I don't even know where we're at, but that was kind of like an overview.
The Cape Fear event.
Well, it was an overview of like my surfing.
Absolutely.
Life, I guess, in some ways.
As part of this, I called Shelley to ask a bunch of questions about you, and she mentioned, and I didn't know this about you, that Shelley's your wife, is that you had played a part in the vest and the development of the vest with Shane Dorian, and that's a vest that surfers wear these days in big surf, and you pull the trigger when you're underwater, and it'll basically inflate and pop you to the top. You talk about that a little bit?
I wouldn't say, no, I wouldn't say that's correct.
Okay.
Shane was 100% the guy that was at the forefront and done that. I guess at the time, we needed to do something because he nearly drowned and I nearly drowned at the same time.
Yeah.
And so...
in the same season somewhere?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I nearly drowned at the right and he nearly drowned at Mavs. And so for me, I was like, well, shit. At the time I was training, I was at the top of my game and I nearly drowned because I didn't have enough flotation to get me to the surface.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the first time that, you'd have close calls. Like you surf big waves back then without the inflation, you fall off, there's a very high chance that you're going to get a 2-wave hold down. If you get a 2-wave hold down, you're going to come close to drowning. And that's just fact. And so it was, no, I didn't invent the inflatable vest, but there was so much talk around having to have something like that, because 1 impact vest or 2, if you could fit it on, wasn't enough for the waves that we were surfing. And so something had to happen, and that was with a 5-minute breath hold or whatever I had, or being able to comfortably hold my breath under a high threshold, or CO2 tolerance or whatever you want to call it. And so so something had to happen. No, I didn't invent the vest. Nice try, Shell, but no.
Nice try, Shell. You fucked me there a little bit. But you're a part of the conversations around that, which makes sense because you're a competitor at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Being held underwater.
Yeah, absolutely. But we were also test dummies for the ones that were coming out. Like, we're trying Billabong ones. We had misfires. We had 2 smaller cartridges. We had bladders explode. Like we had, mate, yes.
All the shit you don't want to happen when it's really big.
Yeah, and that was like in the earlier stages, especially at Jaws when I was, with Albie a lot of the time and Billy Kemper. Like those vests were pretty dog shit. The pins would get jammed. There was heaps of stuff that we were test dummies for because they'd only just come out. So, yeah.
Fucking hell. Unbelievable. How important has it been to have Shelley? You guys have been together a really long time.
Yeah,
and she's ridden out a lot of this shit.
Yeah.
She's resilient.
She's very resilient. I actually, looking back at it, I didn't realise how resilient a partner would have to be, or my life partner would have to be, because like I was saying, like there's ups and downs, you're high, you're low, you're never off, because you're thinking like, okay, you get a call and you'd be like, who is it? And it'd be like Billy or Albie or Mark or someone, or, the weather forecaster, or you see a blob. And so you're constantly just like where are we going? Like, what's it like? And like, you wouldn't make a decision. And the scariest part was making the decision to actually go.
I bet.
So like the whole week, you're cooked, and you're trying to like relax and like be calm, but like there's a black blob that's like at Tahiti, and all the hype's like it's gonna be the biggest swell ever and all this other crap, and so it was stressful. It was a really stressful time doing that for a job for a long period of time.
And imagine being the partner of someone. Like, imagine, I'm just trying to put myself in Shelley's shoes. Okay, here he goes again. We're gonna go see if he comes back or not. We're not sure.
Yeah, exactly. But at the time, I didn't put my mind into what Shelley's thinking, because you're a selfish, ego-driven prick that only cared about what they were doing at the time.
Yeah, no, totally.
But she is such a massive support, and there's no way I could have done that stuff at the time without a supporting partner. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so, yeah,
You're lucky.
I am super lucky. Yeah.
So, mate, 2017 seemed to be where, and I could be wrong here, but around about the 2017 is when I think that your surfing sort of comes to a bit of a halt, and you go on a new pathway. So a challenging year, anyway.
Yeah, it was a challenging year because I'd just come off the finals at Jaws, and it was the first real chance that the WSL gave me. And so I kind of had a point to prove, I guess, because I'd waited a long time for that opportunity.
And what was the opportunity, man?
It was to compete in the Jaws event for the Big Wave World Tour.
Yep.
Which was obviously a WSL, World Surf League. And so coming from the Gold Coast to get an invite to that was, 5-6 years of dedication of just surfing that place and being pretty obsessed with doing that. And so, yeah, around that time, I feel like I definitely was at the peak of my career, and I felt like, I could have probably won that event if I had the right opportunities and, timing and maybe some priority would have helped.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately at that time, I got a notification from Monster that we're going to be parting ways. That the agreement wouldn't be re-signed, and that they were going into a different direction. And so that was when, I feel like probably that was when the pinch of the surfing world was starting to happen a little bit.
Yep.
And so, I was thinking, oh, well, that sucks, but I should be able to find something out there, to replace it. And anyway, I stayed resilient with it, and it was difficult, really difficult to find another replacement from that sponsorship. And, I had to do whatever was necessary to make a living. And so it was super difficult because at that time I had my daughter. I think I maybe actually had my second daughter at that stage.
Yeah.
I did actually.
Yep.
So 2 kids, no income, and that went from the peak of my career to like nothing overnight. And thinking that I was going to be able to survive and stay positive throughout it. But making a living from YouTube at that stage wasn't really there. Surfers definitely weren't making a living from YouTube.
No.
And so it was a real crossroad. And any sports person to go through that stuff, it's a struggle. It's very difficult to comprehend, especially when you get notoriety. You're feeling good, and then boom, lights out instantly. And so, like I said before, I had to put food on the table. So I had a carpentry background after I left school early. And then, the old man was like, on the job site, let's go.
Yep.
So, basically went formwork, concreting,
Some of the hardest work you could ever do.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Fucking
and
hell.
doing 10-hour days and stuff like that, and to go from doing that and feeling like you're a rock star in this world to like, you know, rocking up to the job sites and guys like falling over when they're seeing you, like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
It was a slippery slope, and it was really challenging. Mentally, it was
Huge hit to the ego.
Oh, but yeah, like it was, but your identity and all that sort of stuff is tied up into what you do. So it was super challenging, and end up getting an invite the next year for Jaws, and that was when they had to call the event off because it got too big. Hey, can we start heading?
Yep, let's do it. No, you're right. Well,
can we start heading back? I just don't want to be late.
Don't be late for Shelley's Pilates.
But we can just do this out the front.
I get
house.
it. Let's do it. And then she's ready to go. Yeah.
Sorry, back on.
No, you're fine.
And so I got an invite. Like I say, I got an invite for the Jaws event the following year. But the problem was, and what people didn't realise, is what I was doing. I wasn't surfing. I was like working. I was on the job site. I was doing whatever it took to put food on the table for my family. And unfortunately for me, that was like, you know, really hard labour work, and I didn't get to surf. But I didn't want to miss the opportunity. They invited me back, not knowing that I hadn't been surfing.
Yeah.
And so
you've got no prep.
No prep. I got some boards, no stickers there, no support. Paid for my own way to get there. And I'm thinking, oh fuck. I was thinking back in my head, I'm like, man, I hope it's not too crazy. Like, I hope it's like a real nice Jaws day.
Not a good mental state to be going into a Jaws event.
Not really, no. I mean, I knew I could pull it, but, you know, what I didn't realise was, like, it was going to be the biggest waves for a surfing event ever, paddle surfing event ever. And it just so happens that my heat was in the peak of that swell.
Wow.
And so... yeah, I was like, well, here it is. You know, I also had the mindset. It was like, well, if I perform, you know, this could be me back on.
You could be back on.
So I wasn't thinking like I'm gonna fucking drown and I'm cooked and I'm no good. I was still fit. I wasn't surf fit, but you know, I still backed myself all the way to the end. And so that was a heat with Billy. When Billy knocked himself out. Who else? The French kid hit the bottom and got smoked, snapped his board. Billy knocked himself out, got a crazy big barrel but didn't make it. But then Twiggy got the biggest paddle wave ever and barrel, the one that he airdropped out of the lip.
Yeah.
And then I free fell, paddled into one, tried to do a bottom turn, got hung up and airdropped and free fell, snapped my board, got sucked over the falls. Healy got smoked. They called the event off straight after that. And so I went from on the job site to the biggest paddle surfing event or like heat ever with no sponsorship. And I'm just thinking, holy shit, man, this is too much, you know. And then from that moment, I didn't ever want to be someone that just kept chasing it.
Yep.
If it wasn't meant to be, and I went as hard as I can at the time that I had with it, I always made a promise to myself that I would put that time and energy into something else. I didn't know at the time what that was going to be, and so that's what I did. I thought, okay, the surfing thing's done for me now. I'm moving on. I've got to do that for my family. I've got to do it for myself. And so I closed that chapter really abruptly and just went, bang, okay, what else am I doing? And that's when I dedicated myself to find a job that was in line with my passion and all that sort of stuff. And very difficult to get into, and a whole different world. I got into the aviation firefighting, which is a specialised federal organisation that is government funded to monitor aircraft and airports and all surroundings and everyone in it in case an aircraft explodes or crashes.
Wow.
So I went from surfing to the next year somehow jagged to get into that, and I think there was over 55,000 applicants,
Oh my God.
and I got shortlisted to get in interview stage. Missed out that year, got in the following year, and got flown down to Melbourne for a 15-week recruitment course, and that was 15 weeks. And on that recruitment course, Shelley rang me and said, "Hey, I've got some news for you. We're having a third child." And I'm thinking, are you taking the piss or what? Like, financially we're strapped, you know. We already had 2 kids, going through this change, and then she hits me with that on recruitment course, and I'm thinking, wow, this is wild. We just turned right here.
Yep.
And yeah,
Wow.
so it was the whole recruitment course. So what blew my mind, it's military based. So I went from doing whatever the fuck I wanted, running my own ship, like wild, crazy life, to marching in the morning.
Sorry, mate, it's me.
Oh, you're
My
right.
brother fucking ringing me. Sick as.
Sorry, I'll just let Sean know.
Yeah, let her know. Yeah, so you were going into the military.
So I basically went into the military, or it's a form of it for sure.
Yeah.
Like there's officers, so substation officers, officer. There's like, you know, captains. There's like, I'll just keep
Left
going.
here.
Yeah, left. And so we had to learn to march. We had to wear. You know,
Wow.
we had to have our uniform like ironed. We had to do all these things, and it's just up there a little bit.
Yeah, sweet.
And it's all a chain of command. So you have to say yes, sir, all these things, which is just so wild.
So foreign as well.
Yeah. And they were good about it. Like, they knew that I was kind of like struggling to even digest what the hell was going on. And yeah, so it was crazy times.
So how did you find yourself where you are now, mate? From there, yeah,
Sorry,
obviously
man. I'm just going to call Shell.
Yeah, just give her a call.
Maybe
Tell her we're out the
keep
front.
it rolling.
Yeah, let's find out what she's got to say. Yeah, definitely keep
She'll
rolling.
be losing it. She pushed back. I'm out the front. Okay. All right, wait. Yeah, she's not happy.
Okay, good.
That's all right.
We'll
We'll make it worth it.
You'll make it way. We'll keep it. Well, we're pretty much wrapped anyway, mate. But I just wanted to know how you got to where you are now with what you're doing. And what are you doing?
So I went from the fireys doing that thing. In short, financially didn't make sense for me to keep it going, and they wanted me to commute for work. Enjoyed my time doing that, whatever, but I was always going to get involved back into the family business in some way.
Yep.
Wasn't necessarily keen to do the building thing and run that. But then I also had some sort of marketing knowledge around marketing myself through surfing.
Fully.
And so I saw a bit of an opportunity because they weren't really doing that in the building world that well, especially for commercial, because we specialize in commercial stuff, which, if people don't know, they're basically big sheds, you know, similar to what aircraft hangars are and stuff like that. And so when I was at the Fires, I went and done my real estate license course and agency license course because I wanted to start my own agency. I couldn't be with a big corporate because I just went from a military thing.
Yeah, you're the last thing you want.
And I'm like, no, that's not me. If I'm doing it my way. In short, I started my own agency and started selling the stock that my family are building, not only for themselves, but for other clients.
Nice.
And then brought a marketing thing aspect into it that was a bit quirky and different. And then also learnt lead generation, AI stuff, and just use my contacts to be able to create something in a commercial world that hadn't been done before. And so I just went all in, learned the trade, understood all aspects of it, and so now I manage, market, sell, lease, and property manage commercial. It's doing really well. I'm
stoked for you. I'm so
Yeah.
proud of you, man. And what do you think do you think that coming out of surfing and finding yourself where you are now, it's got to be one of your greatest achievements, would you think?
Like I said, I'd always seen a lot of sports people struggle with that transition, and I knew it was coming. The biggest thing for me was picking myself up off the floor and being successful in something else outside of being a professional athlete.
Yeah.
And for me, at the moment, that is my biggest achievement, is like, you know, not being known for being a washed up surfer, but actually known for, you know, being a businessman in another field and being quite successful in that has been probably my biggest achievement to date, for sure.
Unbelievable.
And
man.
bringing the family along for that journey, and being proud of what I've been able to do, because it was very difficult.
Man,
Yeah.
I'm stoked for you, and I'm so stoked that you got to do this with me, man. And I don't want to hold you up because Shell's got Pilates.
Shell
She's
did
gonna
have Pilates.
fucking kill it.
Shell did have Pilates.
No, she missed it.
She missed it.
Shell, I'm
And,
sorry. We talked. I gave
yeah.
him a coffee, which was a mistake.
It was a triple shot too, so
Hip, we could keep on talking all day, man. I
No,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you for everything that you've done for me as well, man.
no,
I
of
appreciate
course.
it.
Yeah, no,
that
was fun.
And people will be stoked to hear
Sorry if I
this story.
ranted too much, mate.
No such
but
thing.
That's a
No
podcast,
such thing.
isn't it?
That's what podcasts are.
Yeah. Well,
man.
I had fun.
Great.
It's like
We
therapy.
lost the camera along the way. I don't know what happened there.
Oh, who cares?
I meant to be a fucking cameraman. But anyway.
Mate, you had 3 cameras, so
If we
we're
didn't get it
still-
on one of them,
We're still running 2.
Mate, thanks so
Yeah.
much, Hip.
No,
I appreciate
thanks,
it,
brother.
man.
That was
it.
fun.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
All right, mate.
Let's
Well,
button it down. I think we went well then, didn't we?
Yeah.
Did we go
I
good?
don't know. We'll soon find out. I spoke enough.
Yeah.
How's the mighty Hip? Are you kidding me? The shit that guy's done, unbelievable. I'm just so lucky to get him in the car, and I'm stoked that you've come this far and you've watched episode 2 of the Skegcast. I guess I better go find someone for episode 3. Thanks for watching.